Hello everybody, it is LE Diecast, and we have some very special Star Wars Hot Wheels to take a look at. We'll do a review of these. For the most part, this video is going to be on the Star Wars series that you can find at Walmart, but I did find this very cool Ralph McQuarrie 66 Dodge A100 Rancor vehicle. This particular one is part of a series of 6 vehicles. This was the only one I wanted. They did have the others. I tend not to pick these up unless I'm looking for tires and I can get them really cheap. But almost got the Bronco. I like the Bronco. All based off of Ralph McQuarrie's work. Ralph McQuarrie, for those that don't know, was one of the main concept artists behind the original Star Wars and has had a lot of influence, probably more so than anybody, on the whole Star Wars universe. And this little guy here, this cute guy, that's called a Rancor for any of you that don't know. He appeared in the original 3rd series. And did you know that Rancor tried out for the part of Han Solo? Yes, he had that part for a while. Harrison Ford came along. Harrison Ford is actually taller than Rancor. Harrison Ford took that role away from poor Rancor, and he was delegated to the dungeon monster that we all loved, but it destroyed poor Rancor's acting career. He's actually not that tall, believe it or not. It's all special effects. But that's not true. I made that up. If you're wondering what's going on. Rancor, though, according to Wikipedia, which you cannot argue with Wikipedia, it is a real thing, look it up. Rancors were large, semi-sentient reptilian carnivores native to the planet Darthamur. A Rancor named Patessa was kept as a pet by Jabba the Hutt in a pit below his palace court, at which he fed people that displeased him. So that is Patessa. It actually had a name. I did not know that. You can't argue with Wikipedia. The concept for the Rancor in Return of the Jedi was described by its creators as a cross between a bear and a potato. It was first to be played by an actor in a suit, but no one was satisfied with the results. The Rancor was then made as a rod-operated puppet, filmed with high-speed camera to slow its movement down and give it the illusion of a much larger creature. I have heard people say that it was claymation. It was not claymation. It's called a rod-operated puppet, which is kind of a larger puppet. You see these a lot on Sesame Street, more like nothing's coming to mind, but they basically use rods to control the movements of the arms and the legs. There are 4 types of Rancors, believe it or not, if you count everything in the Clone Wars universe and the comic books and the whole Star Wars canon. There's Hunter Rancors, Rage Rancors, Shadow Rancors, and Jungle Rancors. And the Jungle Rancor was originally developed for the Star Wars movie, The Clone Wars. Clone Wars was going to be the feature film, and it was cut, believe it or not. They used that actually in another movie, and now I'm not remembering what it was. Or maybe it was the Clone Wars cartoon. I think that's where they ended up using that idea. So, Rancor. This is probably the hardest one to find from this series. There's a close-up of the art. I've heard the art is different on these. We're going to open them. Different on the other side. We're going to go ahead and open it up. And it is... There it is. And for all yous that don't open... All yous that don't open them up, there's the other side. That is Jabba the Hutt. And just remember, kids, it'll be the answer to a contest someday. The Rancor's name was Patessa. Alright, we'll put him down there. Let's take a look at these Star Wars cards that are out at Walmart. Now, mine came and went very fast, and the only reason we get to even do this video is I happened to get there in the afternoon when they just put these out. So I got one set. I don't think any of the cards will be particularly collectible, but finding the whole set may be a bit tricky. And each of these cards is based off a planet in Star Wars. So to continue our geeky theme here, Well, I'll tell you a little bit about each planet. First of all, here are all the cars in the set. There are 8 of them total. They're all fantasy cars, I believe. Well, I guess you could argue about that Rockster, but they're fantasy named cars. How about that? Unlicensed cars. And we'll start with Camino. Camino, I think that's how you pronounce it. I forgot from the show, but I think it's Camino, not Camino. Was an aquatic planet located beyond the Risha Maze, where the clone army for the Galactic Republic was created. It was inhabited by a race of tall, elegant beings called the Caminoans. The Caminoans were known to be mysterious species who tended to keep to themselves, and if you're wondering what they had to do with anything, they were those tall dudes with the skinny head that were walking around with Darth Maul in the original new Star Wars, A New Hope, I think it was called. And they are known for their cloning technology, and that is where the clones came from the Clone Wars. There's the Camino car. What is it? It is a... What is that car? The Camino is the Rapid Transit. That's the Rapid Transit. So Camino. Mustafar is the next one. This is probably my favorite from this series. By the way, I'm not going to open these up. The card art is nice on them, and I think we can use them in a feature in another show sometimes down the way. So Mustafar, this was the planet where Darth Vader is created. Anakin Skywalker gets into a fight, ends up falling into lava, legs chopped off, big old mess. That's Mustafar. You remember that from the last of the new Star Wars. And Mustafar, couldn't find a lot of interesting things about Mustafar. So, but to create the planet's lava effects for Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, a real volcanic eruption was filmed in Sicily's Mount Etna. That is the... Is that Fast Fish? That's Fast Fish, right? Mustafar. Fast Fish. That is a nice one. That's probably my favorite from these. Next is everybody's favorite Tatooine from the original Star Wars. This is home to Luke Skywalker and Anakin Skywalker. Probably more Star Wars filmed on Tatooine than any other planet. Tatooine is a sparsely inhabited desert planet located in the galaxy's outer rim territories. It is the old west of the Star Wars universe. It's way out there. It would serve as a homeworld to the influential Anakin and Luke Skywalker, who would go on to shape galactic history. Initially inhabited by native Jawa and Tusken Raider species, now I thought this part was interesting, it would soon see a population explosion following the search for valuable mining deposits on the planet's surface. Finding the ore to have unwanted metallurgic properties, mining firms would leave the planet en masse, leaving behind valuable equipment, and that is where the sand crawler that the Javas drove around in, you know, that big wedge-shaped vehicle, because it says, most notably, large sand crawlers, which would later be used by the Jawa population. So there you go, a little background as to how the Jawas got their sand crawler. It was a mining town, and the stuff they were mining didn't work out, so everybody left behind those big vehicles. I always wondered how something like the sandcrawler got down on the surface there. Awfully big vehicle to just show up. Jawas didn't look like they could make that themselves. Next is Hoth, which you might remember from the next movie in the series. This is where the AT-ATs were that you probably remember. The temperature, although always frigid on Hoth, was known to drop to minus 60 degrees Celsius. Although devoid of intelligent life, Hoth was home to 15 species of large gray snow lizards called tauntauns, and to a species of towering predators known as wampas. Also, did you know that the group that was fighting on Hoth, the rebels, were called the Allegiance to Restore the Republic? That's what Princess Leia and the gang were fighting with. I never knew that was their name, believe it or not. I just thought they were the rebels. I thought that's what they called themselves. They had a name. They had an acronym. There is Hoth. That is the Rockster Pretty neat. Dagobah is next, home to our favorite little green Jedi, at least home for a while. Dagobah was a planet in the Dagobah system and one of the purest places in the galaxy within the Force. A remote world of swamps and forest, it serves as a refuge for Jedi Master Yoda during his exile after the destruction of the Jedi Order. A lot of people's favorite movie. That's Dagobah. Dagobah is a pony up, which is sort of like a Corvette. There's Dagobah. Get a close-up of that. Hard to see what that is, but it's a swamp picture. I do believe these are the same on the other side. Bespin is next. Bespin is the silhouette. Should mention these are probably better than the last release that they put out of Star Wars vehicles. I like the Tampos much better. The Ugnaught city of Ignorgrad also was located over the planet, being ruled by King Oz in the time after the Battle of Endor. During the Galactic Civil War, Bespin remained unaffiliated, but that did not prevent the Galactic Empire from garrisoning the planet and seizing control of Cloud City, which is probably what you remember. That hopping place where Lando Calrissian lived. However, with the Empire's defeat at Endor, the gas giant and its prosperous mining colony ended up recovering their freedom. So all ended up good on Bespin. In the series, we kind of see them flying away from Bespin, never to be seen again. But there you go. In case you were worried about Bespin, everything worked out fine. I'm sure Lando's back there at the discotheque having a good time. Next is Endor, which gets to be the HW Pursuit, Hot Wheels Pursuit vehicle. We remember Endor from the Jawas, not the Jawas, sorry, from the Ewoks. Getting my small Star Wars creatures mixed up. Here's an interesting thing about Endor. After the movie, according to Wikipedia, Endor, also known as the forest moon of Endor in the Sanctuary Moon, or the Sanctuary Moon, was a small forested moon that orbited the outer rim planet of the same name and was the homeworld of the sentient Ewok and Yasm species. It had 2 suns. Do you know what they're called? Very creative. Endor 1 and Endor 2. The scenes for the forest moon were filmed in the giant redwood forests of Northern California, in particular, tall trees, redwood grove, and other forests near the remote town of Smith River. So if you ever want to go up there, you might see a Bigfoot, and maybe it'll look like a Ewok. You can go up there. Endor. Lastly is Jakku, which we know from the recently released movie. Jakku's got some interesting stuff, and I'm going to tell you this because, quite honestly, I was not really a big fan of the new movie and have not been a fan of the Star Wars movies for quite a long time. I think the last 4, if you want to count them that way, are not particularly good movies, sorry. The first 3 were okay. The last 4 have not been. But Jakku, that's the desert world in the new movie, which you might have thought was Tatooine. It's not. It just looks the same because everything in Star Wars seems to have to start on a desert planet. Jakku is the desert planet where the characters Finn, Rey, Kylo Ren, BB-8, and many supporting characters were introduced in Star Wars A Force Awakens. Now, did you ever wonder why all those big spaceships were smashed on the planet? Well, it explains that in the those words that scroll across the front of the movie, but I didn't read those. So here it is. 1 year and 4 days after the Battle of Endor, the battle broke out between the New Republic and the Galactic Empire on Jakku. The battle would serve as the last major stand of the Galactic Empire and last major battle of the Galactic Civil War. With the battle going badly for the Empire, the Imperials locked tractor beams onto the ships of the New Republic Starfleet, crashing them into the surface below. The battle would ultimately end when knowledge of the Galactic's concordance signings reached the belligerents. 29 years after the Battle of Jakku, wreckage from the battle would still be strewn across the desert in the aptly named Starship Graveyard. That's why those big ships are crashed onto that desert planet. With Nima the Hutt establishing Nima Outpost sometime earlier in the effort to scavenge leftover wreckage from the destructive battle, the up-and-coming First Order would deploy its Resurgent-class Star Destroyer Finalizer to Jakku in an effort to recover a BB unit. This unit, BB-8, possessed a fragment of the map to Jedi Master Luke Skywalker, who had gone into self-imposed exile following the failed attempt at resurrecting the Jedi Order. And by the way, when Disney inherited Star Wars or bought Star Wars, they promised that they would do away with all this goofy governmental taxation, export tax, in exile nonsense that made it so complex to follow. And yet what I just read was what they scrolled across the beginning of the movie, and it's not that simple anymore. They just went right back to it. So those are the Star Wars vehicles. As far as I know, these are at Walmart around now. I think I got mine on the early side of their release. I would expect that you're going to see these in dump bins at some time here in the near future. I'm going to put my Mustafar fast fish out here. You're going to see these sometimes in the near future in dump bins, and you'll be able to get yours. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you in the next one. Bye. Bye.